Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You have tuned in to another edition of the Sports Shop
Right.
27. I'm your host, Jermaine Coulter. And to my far right, Kevin Johnson, KJ. And in the middle, today's special guest,
That's right.
we have Clemson University. He's a Hall of Famer. He's the director of college sports
Hey, got it. Hey,
of
come on.
America and SID. His name is Tim Bourret.
Great
What's
to be
up,
with you
Tim?
guys.
Timber what's up?
How we doing?
Good, good.
It's
Glad
good to
have
see you
doing
guys.
good.
Boy,
So
you
glad to
guys
have
did some digging on the internet to find all those pictures.
Oh yeah, we did a lot of digging.
Hey,
It
you
was
know
a
how we
special
do it.
occasion. Someone who dedicated over
Yeah,
40 years. We wanted to salute you today.
man.
Well,
For the
thank
people.
you. I really appreciate that.
Mr.
I know
Clemson.
you've had some great people on before, especially my man Bill DeAndre. He and
Yep.
I have been great
Indeed.
friends. We worked together from 1983 to whenever he retired. I think in 2014, and
Okay.
then I retired in
Okay.
2018. But glad to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. For the people that don't know you, let them know where you're from and a little bit about your background.
Sure.
All
Yeah,
right.
I grew up in West Hartford, Connecticut,
Okay.
Connecticut.
and my father had gone to Notre Dame, and so I kind of followed in his footsteps, and I went to Notre Dame, and I had a great time there. Was there as a student from 1973 to 1978. I stayed and got my master's degree. I worked in the sports information office during that time, and kind of fell in love with the profession. And then when a job opened at Clemson, KJ, you probably remember the Orange and White publication.
That's right.
Al Adams left the athletic department to start that publication, and when he left, that opened up a position for me. And my first day of work was September 1, 1978, and I've been around here ever since.
Okay.
Hey,
Yes. Well, congratulations, and appreciate you
man.
coming on the show.
Glad to do it.
Yep.
It's good to see
So,
KJ.
so growing up,
He dresses a little bit sharper than he did when he was an undergraduate. He looks pretty good today.
yeah, for real. Yeah. So, growing up, was baseball your first love, or was it another sport?
Yeah, that's interesting. You bring that up. I guess baseball was when I was a little kid. I guess that was my best sport. I um, played for the American Legion team of West Hartford, Connecticut, that went to the American Legion World Series in Lewiston, Idaho in 1973. Still the only West Hartford team to make it all the way to the series. I was the most valuable player on my Northwest Catholic high school baseball team. I tried out for Notre Dame as a walk-on, but got cut. But that's okay because it gave me more time to be in work in sports information, which ended up obviously being my true love. But I followed all the sports. I actually was second in the city growing up in the punt, pass, and kick contest, but I didn't play high school football, believe it or not, because I wanted to listen to the Notre Dame games on Saturdays, and my high school team played on Saturday opposite that. That's how big a Notre Dame fan I was when I was
What?
growing up. I would sit at the kitchen table with my father. My father taught me how to keep stats, and in those days you could only get the games on the radio, but we would listen
Yeah.
to the games on the radio. And then of course I love golf, and I got a job working for NBC Golf doing research now, but we can go into that a little bit later.
Okay. Cool.
All
So
right.
so you said baseball was the first sport that you played, right? And
That's correct.
what position did you play?
Yeah, I was pretty much an outfielder. I played a little bit of first base. I wasn't really that fast. I hit to the opposite field. I didn't hit a lot of home runs, but I was a pretty good fielder and had a good arm. I led the conference my senior year in assists by outfielders, and but I really enjoyed it. My parents were always supported me, came to all my games, and that was important. And it was a lot of fun. Growing up in West Hartford, Connecticut is a great place. It's only 20 minutes from ESPN now. Of course, ESPN wasn't around when I was growing up, but it's a great area.
Okay, cool.
Dang, that's nice.
Yep. So you played baseball, and after that, did you play it? You didn't play any other sport other than baseball.
Well, actually, when I went to Notre, and KJ will be interested in this, the degree to which
Yeah,
football is
come
a
on.
big deal at Notre Dame. So at Notre Dame, they actually have a dormitory league of full tackle football. And we actually would use the equipment that were the hand-me-downs from the varsity and then a JV team. So I played for Morrissey Hall as the punter.
Okay.
I thought I was a pretty good punter when I was growing up. So I was a punter, and so I actually played football. So I played football at Notre Dame, but it was inter-hall football. But they let
Okay, I
us play.
understand.
They let us play. Boy, this would never happen today, KJ. They actually would let us play on Wednesday nights on the artificial turf practice field that the varsity used. So we got to play on that field. And then this championship game, our team never got to the championship game, but the championship game was played in the stadium, the Notre Dame Stadium, the Saturday after the season ended.
All right, cool.
Nice.
So, talk about Hartford, Connecticut a little bit and how you grew up. I know it's cold up there. Baseball and football, probably the biggest sports, and then a little bit of basketball. Just talk about some of the athletes that came from that area, and who inspired you into actually just want to be a statistician or be in the sports information.
Yeah, so West Hartford's a little bit colder than Orangeburg, South Carolina. We got a lot of snow over the course of the year, so it did certainly cut down some of the outdoor sports that you could do. But it had my hometown had a really good organization for youth baseball, football, basketball. I played in youth basketball leagues growing up. I wasn't good enough to play in high school, but I played there, and so by playing, I guess I really acquired an overall a love of sports. So my father actually was the one who really got me going in statistics. Now my father, he was a sports fan, but he was an electrical engineer. If you might let me brag on my father a little bit, in 1969, he was a part of an engineering team that developed the fuel cells for Apollo 11, the first landing on the moon. So we were following that, obviously, but he was a very sharp guy. He went to Notre Dame, and then he got a master's degree from Harvard. So he knew he knew about stats from his engineering aspect. So he showed me the different sheets and how to keep stats. And like I said, we used to listen to Notre Dame games, and I would keep running statistics on the quarterbacks, the running backs, the receivers, and keep a drive chart as the game went on. But and then in high school, I was the PA announcer for football and basketball. So there's Eric Coleman. Hello, Eric Coleman.
Yes, sir.
But anyway, so that's how I kind of got started. But it is an interesting story that when I went to Notre Dame, I really didn't know that sports information existed. I didn't know that there were jobs for students. And so my father happened to meet the sports information director at Notre Dame, a guy named Roger Valdicieri, who I'm happy to say is today 93 years young and still going strong.
That's good.
And so I wrote him a letter and told him I would start as a volunteer. And so he took me on as a volunteer, and one thing led to another. And then I applied for a job at Clemson and got it. So my father, I guess, is the one who inspired me. But now, as far as athletes that I followed that inspired me for a love of sports, it would be Bill Russell in basketball, who played for the Celtics, won 11 world championships. Mickey Mantle in baseball, who was a great home run hitter for the Yankees. Arnold Palmer in golf, and then a quarterback that you guys probably never heard of named Y.A. Tittle. He was the quarterback of the New York Giants. Now, of course, all those guys were local except for Arnold Palmer, playing with local professional teams. And so I guess that's why I followed them.
Was Y.A. Tittle the quarterback when Frank Gifford was running back?
Yeah, very good. Yes, he was. His name was Yelberton Abraham Tittle. How about that for a name? And he
Yep.
took the Giants to the World Championship in 1961, and then they played for the championship in the '63. And Frank Gifford was on that team. Very good. I'm impressed with your knowledge of history there, Jermaine. That's good.
Thank you. Yep, no problem. Go ahead, KJ.
Did you get recruited in baseball coming out of high school?
No, it wasn't that good. Interesting you say that. So we went to I went to that American Legion World Series, which was after my senior year of high school, which would have been a time if I was going to get recruited, I would have been recruited. And so I happened to see that there were a lot of pro scouts because you obviously get drafted out of high school. So there were a lot of pro scouts at that American Legion World Series. Dale Murphy, who went on to fame with the Atlanta Braves, played in that American Legion World Series, by the way, out in Lewiston, Idaho. Yeah. And so anyway, I happened to get a copy. I see a copy of, they had little scouting reports on all the players on the team. And mine just said, has no interest in playing professional baseball, going to Notre Dame. That was it. Don't bother with this guy.
And that's good because you get to get those assists.
That's what I was going to do. In fact, right from that, we played in Lewiston, Idaho, and we flew from West Hartford, Connecticut to Idaho. So we felt like we were the Yankees going to the West Coast. But school was starting at Notre Dame while we're out in Idaho because it was later in August. So I actually went straight to, my parents picked me up. They drove all my stuff out from Connecticut to Indiana, and then they picked me up at the Chicago airport, and I went straight to Notre Dame from Idaho.
South
Bend. It was a
Bend.
fun time.
Yes, sir. So talk about your first day at South Bend. You're there as a freshman. You get on campus. Who's the first person that you that actually take you in and say, "Hey, welcome to Notre Dame"?
Well, because my father had gone there and I had been out there, I had no transition at all. I knew where everything was on the Notre Dame campus. My father had been taking me there since I was 10 years old. I'd been to football games. So, when they dropped me off, I mean, obviously I met my roommates and actually you talk about recruiting, KJ, I actually kind of recruited people from my high school to go to Notre Dame. And my father actually was the guy who would go to high schools in the state of Connecticut and represent Notre Dame at college nights. And so 7 other people from kids from my high school in Connecticut at Northwest Catholic went to Notre Dame with me, which is probably still the most it's ever gone in 1 year from high school in Connecticut. But so I had a lot of friends to start with, and then we lived in a dorm, and I made friends with all those people. Now, of course, I was into athletics, even though I wasn't working in sports information then. I picked a really good time to go to Notre Dame. My first year, 1973, Notre Dame won the national championship, beat Alabama 24-23 in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Eve. And then 19 days later, I was at the game that Notre Dame beat UCLA in basketball to end UCLA's 88-game winning streak, which was just, amazing. That was one of the great events in the history of college basketball. Bill Walton. Yeah,
Bill Walton to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, those were great teams and great players. So, and so that was a great season. Notre Dame ended up won the national championship in football and finished in the top 5 that year in basketball. So that was a pretty good freshman year. And then after my junior years, when I discovered that there was sports information positions for students, and that's when I got involved there. And then I stayed for grad school, and my graduate school year was the 77-78 academic year. And Notre Dame won the national championship again in football and went to the Final Four in basketball. That was the first time in 30 years any school had done both of those in the same year. But I've been really fortunate to be around winning programs. When I was a student, Notre Dame won 2 national championships in football, and of course, since I've been at Clemson, we've won 3 national championships at Clemson.
Lou Holtz was the coach at the time.
No, actually, Ara Parsegian was the coach when I started in 1973. And then Dan Devine was the coach for the second national championship. Coach Holt started in 1986, and
All right.
stayed until 1997. So,
They went to the
yeah, and
Carolina
of course,
Gamecocks.
he was when you were playing KJ. He was the coach at South Carolina
Yeah.
That's right.
against us.
So talk about going to school and the big frenzy with Joe Montana on campus at the time. He's the real big reason why y'all won the second national championship, I believe. Going into the later 70s, you probably was in grad school at the time. Talk about that surgeons.
Yeah, well, I actually got to know Joe Montana because I worked in the sports information office, and obviously we set up a lot of his interviews. But on top of that, his first wife was a secretary in sports information. They had met in high school when he was in high school in Pennsylvania, and he was from Monongahela, Pennsylvania, and she was a cheerleader for a rival high school. And that's somehow how they met, and so then they got married after his freshman year, if you can believe that, in 1975, January of 1975, and then she got a job in the sports information office. So she was like the first person I met in sports information. So,
Wow.
funny story. When I worked there in the summertime. Obviously, she would drive to work and Joe would come for class. But when I ran, and his father was a car dealer in Pennsylvania. So he had a white Trans Am, which at the time was like the hottest car going. So, but when I had to run errands on campus, she would let me borrow the car to drive on campus. And one time I'm driving along and there's Joe walking to class, and I just honked the horn and waved at him because I was driving his car.
What did he say? Did he mean mug you?
He just kind of stared at me. He wasn't sure. He wasn't sure who it was. He was hoping somebody hadn't stolen his car. But then he saw me and he knew I was because we really everybody worked in sports information, was close with his wife's name was Kim, and I'm still good friends with her today. And so we used to go over on Sunday nights and have pizza, at their house. And Joe hung out with us obviously at the house. He in August when the media guides would come in, and we had to stuff 2,000 media guides to send out to people who bought them. I mean, he used to come in and help us stuff the media guides. But he was so competitive. He would set up like a race to see who could stuff the most media guides in a minute. It just kind of showed me how competitive he was in everything. So anyway, but I got to do a lot with him as far as setting up his interviews and things like that, and especially during that exciting 1977 season.
All right, cool.
Yeah, so growing up as a Notre Dame fan, what led you to Clemson?
Well, a job. I'll be honest. Yeah, so when I graduated from grad school at Notre Dame, they didn't have a position for me there. So like anybody else, I applied for jobs at various schools, and I because Notre Dame had done so well, I got a lot of people contacted back to me to talk to me, to interview, and so in August I had an interview at Kansas State and at Clemson.
Oh.
And so I first went to Kansas State, and at this point, I was ready I really love sports information, and I was ready to go just about anywhere. I would have loved to stay at Notre Dame, but it wasn't an opportunity. So anyway, I go to Kansas State and I interview there. And so they call me back and they say, well, it's between you and a guy named Craig Thompson. Might be a little bit of a familiar name to some of the people watching. Craig Thompson today is the commissioner of the Mid-American, one of those conferences out west. Anyway, so and he's been on the committee for the college football. He's done a great job, and so it was between he and I. And then I interviewed down here with Mr. Bradley at Clemson. So I come back, And on Monday, Kansas State calls me, and I knew the Kansas State job was paying $9,500 a year. And so they picked Craig Thompson. So I didn't get that job. Well, 2 days later, Mr. Bradley calls me and offers me the incredible sum of $12,800 to come to Clemson. So I said, man, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, because I would have taken a job to get started. But so I got the job at Clemson and came down to work for Mr. Bradley. Now, I had gotten a free visit to Clemson the previous fall. In the fall of 1977, the year Notre Dame won the national championship, they actually played at Clemson. You might have heard of that game, both of you. And it was a thrilling game. Notre Dame came back to win 21-17. But I got to see what Clemson was all about. And it was a great atmosphere. And now KJ, in those days, the stadium only held 53,000, but it was packed. I vividly remember when I was with on the team bus. We actually, in those days, you could drive the team bus right next to the visiting locker room. So you could actually drive next to it and you could see the hill. And at 11 o'clock in the morning, the hill was packed for a 1 o'clock game. And people were just, going crazy. So, boy, I saw that these people really cared about football. At the time, really, all I knew about Clemson was Tree Rollins. He was a great basketball player at Clemson when I was in college. I kind of knew about Steve Fuller, but not as much. And then obviously after that game, I sure did, because it was a great game. So I knew a good bit about Clemson. I knew it'd be a great place to start my career.
Great. Yeah, so you started off on radio?
I started out as the sports information director. I might just say, some people tuning in, maybe, what does a sports information director do? Well, we set up all the interviews. We do all the press guide. If somebody from the Orangeburg Times and Democrat wants to talk to KJ or Woody Dantzler or whatever, I'm the person who facilitates the interview, and we do that for all the coaches. We talk to the players about trying to give them help in preparation for their interviews. We do a lot of writing. It's a lot of math, and it's a lot of English. We write the stories for the program. We write all the releases, the weekly press releases, the things that help the media prepare for their, broadcast. Now, the radio part of it, I actually started doing basketball. My first year, I actually got to do 2 games at a tournament out in El Paso, Texas. This is kind of a little bit of an interesting story. I'm sure you guys have heard of the Woody Hayes game against Ohio State in 1978 when he hit Charlie Ballman and got fired after the game. But Clemson won the game 17-15. Well, I wasn't at that game. I was with the basketball team. My priority when I started was with the basketball team, and I actually did the games on the radio with Jim Phillips. And so we were doing the game, and the basketball game and the football game were going on simultaneously. And so during one of the timeouts, the producer back at the station just blurted out in our headset, "Oh my God, he hit him. He hit him." And we're thinking, what? Because we didn't have a TV. We had no idea what was going on. And the guy says, he just hit Charlie Ballman. And we thought, who hit Charlie Ballman? And he said, Woody Hayes hit Charlie Ballman. He said, how could that have happened? It was just mass confusion. And then later on that night, we saw the video of it. So that was actually how I started. But then I started doing basketball games, all the games in 79, 80. And then I did the football games from 1980 to 1988 when I was still Mr. Bradley's assistant. And then when Mr. Bradley retired, it was too much to go into the to do the radio and be the sports information director. But now, after I've retired, I've gone back to doing football and basketball. I've actually, one of the pictures you showed at the beginning, I've actually done over 1,000 Clemson basketball games over the last 40 years, which has been been a lot of fun. Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun.
So you came to Clemson at a time when they had a bunch of great players and they're on a surge to a national championship. You just left Notre Dame winning a national championship. Talk about working and being an SID at the time with Homer Jordan, KD Dunn, all those guys on the
Ray
1981,
Williams.
Ray
Yeah,
Williams.
Ray Williams came a little bit after that, but you're right.
After that,
Yeah, it was a great time, and I've been very fortunate. I was at Notre Dame at a great time, and then came to Clemson. In fact, so I was at Notre Dame in '73, won the national championship. '77 won the national championship, and then '81 won the national championship. So I thought I was supposed to be with a national championship program every 4 years. So, but then it took another 35 years for it to happen, and I figured out those national championships are hard to come by. But when you think, go ahead.
Either that, or you had a 4-leaf clover in your pocket.
Yeah, that's right.
You went.
4 for 4 for 4.
Yep.
So if you look at the stadium and the people in the Ring of Honor in 1978, boy, there were a lot of those people in the Ring of Honor were there either playing or coaching or whatever. But the recruiting class of 1978 had Jeff Davis and Terry Kennard.
Yep.
Here's a little bar bet fact for your people watching that. That's the only recruiting class in ACC history that's had two people who have gone into the College Football Hall of Fame from the same recruiting class. So, and also on the team, of course, was 78 team was Steve Fuller and Jerry Butler, who are both in the Ring of Honor. Danny Ford ended up being a coach at the end of that season. He's in the Ring of Honor. And, of course, the sports information director, my boss at the time, was Bob Bradley. He's in the Ring of Honor. So it was a great time. And what was special about it, guys, was the fact that, Clemson had such a dry spell for a number of years. We went from 1960 to 1976 without going to a bowl game.
Yep.
17 seasons. So when we finally went to a bowl game in 77, that was a big deal. Mm-hmm. And so and then we just kind of carried it on from there. I actually went to a bowl game, I think 14 straight years after that. But so it was really a great time. Things were seemed a lot simpler than they are today. We didn't have as big a staffs. When I look at the amount of people who are on the football staff now versus the way it was then. But nobody dreamed to have the positions that they had. Nobody thought about having an analyst. They were grad assistant coaches, but the strength program was just starting to get going about that time. We had a guy named George Dostal who started right about that time, and in 1981 it kind of started becoming a big deal, strength training. But today we got 6 or 7 guys who are full time in that position. We had just one, back then. So it's really grown up a lot.
Cool. So for being a man behind the camera and seeing recruits come in like William Perry, Michael Dean Perry, guys are like that. What was the pedigree for Clemson to keep that strong defense to come in the beginning of 81 all the way up until 88, 89?
Well, when you look at the history of different schools and different programs, you can see why, they talk about what their history is with their student athletes. And, the Perry brothers really are two of the foundation guys for that defensive line. And we see the great traditions we see of the defensive line today. Before William Perry was Jim Stuckey and a guy named Archie Reese, who both played on the 49er team that won the Super Bowl in 1981. People forget that a team with a lot of Clemson guys won the Super Bowl in 1981, in addition to us winning the national championship in college. Yeah. And Jeff Bryant was another guy who was terrific as part of that tradition. But William Perry, he kind of brought the bar a different level. He was one of the terrific athletes that I can remember, especially for his size. I mean, I saw him. I remember there was a rumor around that he could dunk a basketball. His freshman year, he was a 305 pound. That's what we listed him as in the press guide, 305 pounds. today, that's what your average is going to be across either defensive or offensive line. But in 1981, that was just huge. I think the offensive line on a national championship team averaged just 240. That was it. And so you got receivers who are 240 today. But anyway, so William was kind of looked at as a freak of nature, an athletic freak. And so he had a great personality. He was great doing interviews. And so, anything about it, boy, if we had social media then, he would have really exploded. He name, image, and likeness. He'd have made $1 million a year off name, image, and likeness. Of course, he did when he went to the pros with the.
He would have got recruited and got 6 figures at Clemson now with the NIL.
There's no doubt about it. He was so gregarious and outgoing and just a great fun-loving guy. But I do remember the summer after his freshman year, and of course we had won the national championship, and so he got a lot of attention. And so I remember Sporting News had heard that he could dunk a basketball. He was 6'3", 300 and whatever pounds. And so I went over to him one day and said, "Hey, Sporting News wants to send a photographer and shoot your picture dunking a basketball. Can you dunk a basketball?" He says, "Oh yeah, I could do that." So I took him at his word, and we went somewhere outside on campus actually, and with the photographer, and standing right under the basket. He didn't have to run or anything. He would do it. Now, I never saw him do it, but I also was told he could dive off it. He used to go over to the Fike pool, and he would go swimming, and he could dive into the pool. He would do diving into the pool. But of course, he was most famous for the things he could do on the football field. And if you go on YouTube and just call it William Perry Clemson highlights, there's a video up there of him, tracking down a running back for Wake Forest named Ramsour. Yeah, I mean, he rushed the quarterback and he just chased him downfield. It's amazing. And it's a picture of him tackling a guy for Maryland named Badanik, where he literally picks him up and carries him backwards about 5 yards. But there's all kind of great now the greatest play he ever had, I got to tell you this story. That same Wake Forest game in 1984. Okay. So, Fridge was not on the punt return team, obviously, but Wake had a 4th and 1, and Coach Ford thought they were going to go for it. So he left the regular defense on the field. Well, they lined up the punt, and after all, they did punt. So the punter goes back there, and William just bull rushes over his guy, just totally blows him up, and hits the up back. And hit the up back with such force, he knocked him backwards. And when the punter punted the ball, he punted it into the backside of the up back. The ball ricocheted back 36 yards, and William recovered it. So that's why on the official 1984 stats, you'll see William Perry is credited with a 36-yard punt return. And that's how that happened. But I'd never seen a guy block a punt without touching the ball. He blocked it with an opposing player. That's how strong he was.
Man. Hey, who gave him the nickname Fridge?
Okay, that's a good story too. And it has a little bit of a tie to name, image, and likeness. So in 1981, kind of during the middle of the season, Ray Brown, you might know Ray Brown. He lives over in Greenville. He's good friends with Ray Williams.
Yep.
So they were over in Malden Hall, and Ray Brown was wanting to get on the elevator, and the elevator stops at his floor, and there's 3 or 4 people on the elevator, and William is standing right in the door. And I mean, of course, he's huge. There's no room for Ray to get on. And so Ray looks at him and says, "William, you're so big. You're as big as a refrigerator. We might as well have put a refrigerator on this." But he actually did not say refrigerator. He said, "We're going to call you GE because you're as big as a refrigerator." In other words, GA stood for General Electric, which is a corporate name. Yep. So Ray Williams actually told the story to one of our student assistants named Jeff Rhodes, and he related the story to Mr. Bradley. So Mr. Bradley wrote about it in a notes column for the next game. But then the compliance people said, you can't use GE because he's promoting a product. So Mr. Bradley changed it to the fridge. He actually changed the nickname so it would be generic and we could use it in his promotion. So that's kind of how it came about. Now, today, if that happened, I mean, William would add a contract making all kind of money promoting General Electric.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So you go into the 90s. You go in at Tommy. Is it Tommy West?
Tommy West started in 1994. Yes.
Yeah. So you go into that era. You're doing the option wing tee. I can't remember what offense you guys were in. Around Nealon Green's era. Raymond Priester. Talk about that. Talk about that era a little bit.
Yeah, we actually ran the ball more so with Ken Hatfield before. He replaced Coach Ford in 1990. And from 1990 to 93, we ran a lot of wishbone, a lot of option, and we were kind of a balanced running team. Now, Tommy West wanted to throw the ball, and he did throw the ball more. Nealon Green was a pretty good quarterback and went on to have a nice career in Canada and with Saskatchewan. And so, but he did have a pretty good balance with Raymond Priester, who became our all-time leading rusher until this past year record. So he held the record for over 25 years. So he was a terrific player. And we had a receiver named Tony Horn during that time who was good. But Nealon was a really good player. Took us to over 20 wins during his career. We had solid teams. We'd win 7 games and go to bowl games. But then in 1998, we had a tough season. Ended up 3-8, and so there was a change made, and Tommy Bowden came, and of course that's who coached KJ.
That's right.
So
and he really changed things to a more of a passing game and to what we see today. Yep. Now that said, it's still nothing like we have today. I tell every time I see Woody, I say, Woody boy, if you were around now, you were born 15 years too early, because he would have been awesome in this. I mean, he might have been Deshaun Watson and Taj Boyd and had numbers like that. I mean, Woody was the first 1,000 quarterback in college football history, as it was. 2,000 yards passing and 1,000 yards rushing in 2001, and he did it in he did it in 11 games. He obviously had a bowl game after that, but he did it in his 11th game against Duke at the end of the season. Yeah, you remember that game, I'm sure. KJ started 8 games on that team. Was a big part of the secondary with Coach Reggie, with the wild man Coach Reggie Herring.
Shout out to Coach Herring. Yes, rest in peace, Bobby Bowden as well.
Yes, good that you. Now I did want to make a point. You bring that up. You can make the point that Bobby Bowden has definitely in Clemson history had the most positive impact on a program as an opposing coach. It's one of the great weird things that Bobby Bowden beat Clemson 14 times more than any other coach, yet had as positive an impact on the program through his son. And of course, Dabo has really adapted a lot of the culture that Tommy Bowden learned from his father. So indirectly, we've gained a lot of benefit from some of the things that Bobby Bowden did with his program that we adopted in the Clemson program. And Clemson people need to understand that and he was a terrific. I got to meet him a few times because of Tommy, obviously, and he was just a terrific guy. I'll tell you a funny story of how just regular guys they were. So in 1999, we go to the ACC football kickoff in Charlotte, and so they get there a little bit early, and so they go up to Tommy's room, and so I go to get him to come down to start the interview process, and I go in the room, and they're both sitting in Tommy's courtroom watching Judge Judy. They both love to watch Judge Judy.
Okay. Wow.
Never would have guessed
off
that,
the
I'm
chain.
sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
they're big fans of Judge Judy.
Yeah, man, off the meter. So talk about the bowl games. You know, I know you're behind the scenes on the bowl games. Which bowl game was your favorite so far working?
Well,
I know probably national championship.
Yeah, I hate to give you a boring answer, but the 2016 season Alabama game, that was just that was my next to the last year that I was full-time sports information director. But to beat Alabama, who of course was the defending champion, who had beaten us the year before, and then to in the manner in which we won the game, you know, coming back and scoring the winning touchdown with 1 second to go in the game was just extraordinary. You know, Hunter Renfrow and Deshaun will live forever in Clemson history. But that was such an exciting season. You know, we were 14-1 and won the national championship. But we had 6 games that we only won by a touchdown or less. So we had some close games. There were a lot of thrilling games, and of course we even lost one, which was an unbelievable game. And Pittsburgh beat us by 1 point. A game in which we had 630 yards total offense. Deshaun threw for 580.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how we lost that game. Well, we had turnovers was the difference. But yeah, that would be my top one. Now, you know, there's some obviously winning the national championship in 2018. Now I did the game on the radio, and I still do some stuff for the athletic department and for Coach Sweeney, kind of on a part-time basis. So I was still around the team, but to beat Alabama by 28 points was just remarkable. You know, going into the game, people were saying Alabama might be the best team ever, and then to beat them by 28 points, that was pretty amazing. But you know, for one other game that I'd like to mention was a game that KJ talked about, and he might give us his little bit memories, was the Georgia Tech game in 2001 that we won 47-44 in overtime. That was a remarkable game.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Woody had a great game. Woody had 418 yards total offense.
JJ McKelvey. Yeah.
And through that pass to JJ McKelvey, you are correct. Yeah, and Georgia Tech had a really good team.
Backfield.
And we kind of got revenge on them because they had ended our undefeated streak the year before.
Yeah,
we won our first 8 games and ranked 3rd in the nation. In 2000, and then they beat us on one of the last plays of the game. So that was certainly a fun game.
Well, I know you're a big. Go ahead, KJ.
Yeah, I was going to ask him how did it feel to be in the Clemson Hall of Fame in 2017?
Okay, that's actually, I'm not in the Clemson Hall of Fame yet because I'm not eligible yet. You have to be retired for 5 years from your position. I've only been retired for 3. The Hall of Fame that I'm in is the National Sports Information Directors Hall of Fame, and I'm very proud of that because I was in the profession. Yeah, it was big. They had a nice ceremony at the Sports Information Convention, and the person who was a Masters of Ceremonies was Maria Taylor, who's been in the news a bit lately. It's gone on to ESPN, but yeah, so I got my picture taken with her, giving me the award. So that was kind of neat, and really always liked her. She was a very, very nice lady. So that was that. And then 2 years later, I got a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Sports Information Directors too. So that was nice to go back for that. But yeah, hopefully, I guess I'm not eligible till 2023 for the Hall of Fame. I'm certainly glad to see.
You're already in there.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to see Bill DeAndre. Bill DeAndre, one of your previous guests, is going in this year. So Hall of Fame Day is in November this year. It's late this year. I think it's the Wake Forest game on November 19th. So Billy D is going to get honored that day, and that'll be great to see. A great class this year, by the way. C.J. Spiller is going in. Jack Leggett, the baseball coach, and Trevor Booker, among other guys, among people.
Okay, cool.
Congratulations to all of them.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I know you're a big Clemson Notre Dame fan. We got some highlights from the Notre Dame Clemson game. We're gonna check it out real quick. And,
Okay, sounds good.
At the time, Notre Dame was undefeated. So we're gonna go ahead and roll that clip real quick.
Go right ahead.
All right.
Welcome to the ACC Football Championship game on ABC. And today's collision here in Charlotte between number 3 Clemson and number 2 undefeated Notre Dame. Their one and only season here in the ACC. Brink 3, Cook has time, gets it out. Once again, it's Mayer with a third down catch for a first down at the 30. So 50, 0 for 2 this year. This from 51. Drives it. And not quite. No, he get it by a yard. I thought it was short. It just crawled over the crossbar. 2nd and 5. They pick up the pressure. Ball deflected and intercepted. And Hamilton has the early takeaway. Deflected by Drew White. To force the long field goal. Lawrence to throw on first down. And we'll take a shot. Wide open is Rodgers. And he's gone. Just like that. Clemson takes the lead. 67-yard strike. 4-man rush. Lawrence steps up, delivers across the middle. And wide open is Williams. Williams headed to the end zone. And the Tigers stretch the lead. 7th straight season of 40-plus sacks for this Venables defense. Buck trying to avoid another sack here. Can he escape? He's going to be spun down for another loss. 29 seconds now. We got to make the yard here. From the shotgun, Etienne will make the first down and breaks free. Forget the first down. He's got a touchdown. The Tigers pouring it on.
It's been lethal combination.
They bring pressure, and Buck will be swarmed at the 5.
Love corners and tackle.
Oh, look downfield. The circus. One-handed catch is made by E.J. Williams.
Then it's been about him this year.
Here's Lawrence for the keeper. In the clear. Lawrence headed for the end zone. Touchdown, Tigers. I'm not sure that he did, but no flag and looking to throw on first down. Trevor escapes. He's got room. And stretches for a 9-yard game on the scramble.
A Heisman candidate in Trevor Lawrence.
Exactly. Flips it in the flat. And Malusi making like Etienne, taking a check down for a big gain down inside the 25.
He's in COVID, and so their growth has been accelerated on that back end.
Tyree breaks free, and finally the Irish find the end zone.
The Irish take many of them.
No, and Clemson is one what they call the competitive plays. You're right. Davis and McKinley have been non-factors. Book has been chased all night, and he'll be sacked again. That's the 6th sack. Trent Simpson got him that time. Even in a surreal season in the ACC, the song remains the same. Clemson's Tigers are the Kings.
Yeah, man. I'm ready for
sir. We back.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the players from Clemson. I know they had a lot of good players come through in the last 5 to 10 years. Who was your eyeball test? Who's your top 10 favorite players from Clemson?
Well, I'd have to start out with C.J. Spiller.
Okay.
CJ and I kind of had a special relationship because he was a guy we really promoted for the Heisman Trophy. Unfortunately, we lost 5 games that year, and that kind of, before the voting, which kind of held him back a little bit. But boy, what a terrific player. So exciting. 21 plays of 80 yards or more in his career. Travis Etienne is second with 10. So nobody has even half as many as CJ has done, and I'm so proud of him that he's now in the coaching staff, and I think he's going to do great things, on the coaching staff. Boy, there's so many good ones and so many, recent ones. Also, Steve, I'm going back to Steve Fuller, back my first year. You always kind of remember, your early years, your first years. Steve Fuller certainly would be on that list. What a great student athlete he was. Had one B in his academic career. Of course, I say that, and a lot of the other players say, "Yeah, I only had one B too. I didn't have any A's." But Steve Fuller had all A's except for one B. He had a 3.97 grade point average. Jeff Davis is certainly on that list, and of course, he's continued to come back and be a great asset to Dabo Sweeney's staff. And now Woody's got to be on there. Woody could be cantankerous when it came to me trying to get him to do interviews. You probably know that, KJ. But there was something about him. I still just love the guy, and still do this to this day. He's just a great guy, sharp guy, and was such a and he was he would be right up there as far as excitement goes. With
Antoine
CJ.
Edwards?
What's that?
Antoine Edwards.
Yeah.
Antoine Edwards.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. He was first rounder, a terrific defender. I'd have to say Wayne Gallman would be up there. He was
running back.
I guess I'm going to be a little bit partial to the guys who were great doing interviews, who made my job easier. Wayne was one of those. Terry Kennard in the College Football Hall of Fame would be up there. Now, of course, I got to have a lot of linemen on that list because a lot of those guys were great interviews. Dalton Freeman would be then there. Eric McLean would be somebody that comes to mind. I know I'm forgetting a lot of guys, but really tough to limit it even to 10. It's really one of the reasons why I did this job for 40 years was interacting with the student athletes and feeling that you could do some things to help them with their career, whether it be promoting them or advising them with interviews, things along those lines.
Yeah, man. Good job. Real.
So what's the most exciting play you've seen in Clemson University? Any sport.
Yeah. Oh, in any sport. It's still got to be the pass to Renfro for the touchdown. I know that's pretty obvious. So let me think of think of some others. Another one would be Greg Buckner's dunk to beat North Carolina in the ACC tournament. That was in 1996. That's still the only time we've beaten the Tar Heels in the ACC tournament. And along those same lines, Amir Sims hitting a three-pointer that ended up giving us the win to finally beat North Carolina for the first time in basketball in Chapel Hill. That would certainly have to be up there. And personally, I'm a big golf fan and loved Larry Penley's program. Being with the team when they won the national championship at Oklahoma State in 2003, that would have to be up there also.
Got a question for you. You talked a lot about Clemson and a lot of players, but there's one player that I know that you witnessed that played against Clemson that's the greatest athlete of all time, and his name is Michael Jordan. Talk about watching him play against Clemson in his college days and what you thought of him at that moment.
Well, of course, Dean Smith kind of held him back a little bit. He didn't average 20 points a game there, but he was a great, obviously you could tell he was a great player. He was such an exciting player, a dynamic player whenever they needed a basket. Now, I will tell you one funny story about him. His freshman year, we're playing North Carolina in Little John Coliseum. And in those days, I guess the configuration was still that way when you were in school, KJ. We had the bleachers right underneath the basket, and they went almost up to the end line. It was just a few feet from the end line. So Michael Jordan goes diving into the student section to save a basketball, which he did. So he's turning around and he's heading back up floor, and a student grabs his shorts and holds him and keeps him from going back on the court. Now, to Michael's credit, he didn't go crazy. He kind of turned around and just laughed at the person, and they obviously let him go. And then he went back into the game. But I always remember that story. But he was a terrific player, and was a great dunker. But they had a lot of great players at North Carolina during that time. That 81-82 team that won the national championship. They had James Worthy and Sam Perkins also, who I think are both Hall of Famers too.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So talk about Len Bias. He played at University of Maryland.
Yeah.
Lefty Drizel, still in the ACC conference. Michael Jordan said at the time that Len was better than him. Talking after he retired basketball. Let's talk about that matchup a little bit and how impactful he was during that time in the ACC and first round draft pick.
Oh yeah, he was. I guess he was the third. Was he the third pick? I know he was picked by the Celtics early. Yeah. And he was a terrific. He really could do anything. He could go inside and he could go outside. He could. He didn't shoot the three as much, but the way the game is today, he would have shot it a lot more, I'm sure, today. But there were a few games that, of course, Jordan played against him. And I do remember, and they should play it more than they do. I've seen at least once that they replayed one of the games up at Maryland when Jordan played against Bias. Now, the most famous game that Bias had against North Carolina, though, was the year after. I believe it was the year after Jordan had left, and it might have been the first game that North Carolina lost in the Dean Center, and it was a famous flurry when Bias stole the ball in the backcourt. He scored a bucket. I think he scored a bucket on a dunk, and he stayed in the backcourt and stole the ball, then grabbed it and went up and dunked again. He had like 2 dunks in about 5 seconds. And that was a terrific performance. But yeah, he really could have changed the dynamics of the Celtics heritage. They went a long time without winning the World Championship when Bird got a little older, and of course Bias was going to come in and take that role. And he would have just been a terrific player. He could jump out of the gym. He was just so fundamentally sound. And he was a great player. A lot of great players in the ACC during those times. Guys didn't just go pro after 1 year. They stayed at least 3 years, and a lot of them stayed 4. Ralph Sampson stayed 4 years. I think Perkins stayed 4 years at North Carolina. There are a lot of great players that it's too bad a lot of those guys we have one and dones. Today, it's taken a little bit away from the heritage of college basketball.
Yeah. Well, I got a clip, man. You got an early retirement gift from Dabo Swinney.
Okay.
Check that out a little bit.
Yes.
All right, cool.
Yeah, notice what side I'm on here. Good looking. You get to play a lot of golf. I'm trying stats down there. Be careful. Don't get in front of him. Watch it. Get run over. And look. You can have it on slow mode. Slow mode. That's a turtle. Yeah. Or you can have it on Jacoby mode. That's fast. You got your lights. You got your phone charger. Got a phone charger. Yeah. You want to go, jam on music or something? Have an iPod. You got your lights. Same way. You all set. Notice the tires, didn't you? All right. Let's check it out. Let's see what we got. You got some tip in it now.
Wow. Yeah,
Wow.
man.
He could not have picked a better retirement gift for me. Of course, I love to play golf. I live on a golf course, but just I mean, that tells you all you need to know about Dabo Swinney, from his thoughtfulness, and to put a Notre Dame sticker on the front of that with the Clemson sticker was just pretty good. But to tell you how that happened, so he wanted to have a little retirement party for me with the media and the football staff, and so we did it at the outdoor, the complex. And so another person started speaking or saying something about me. And so then he introduces Dabo, and Dabo's not there. And so, everybody's kind of looking around, where's Dabo? Well, he came from around the corner of the building driving that cart, and he's honking the horn. And I just thought he was making a grand entrance. And then he came around the corner, and I saw that Notre Dame sticker on the front of him, and I said, that cart's for me.
Yes, sir.
Nobody else, man.
Nobody else.
That was so generous of him, and I've put it to use the last 3 years. In fact, yesterday I don't know if you guys know who Fluff is. He was Tiger Woods' first caddy, and his daughter's coming to Clemson as a freshman.
Okay.
Wow.
So he came over, and we took him golfing yesterday, and we used that cart, so we had a big time.
Cool, man. Yeah, no problem. Well, we appreciate you coming on. Go ahead.
I'll be up there Saturday, man. Might need to try it out.
Are you going to be coming Saturday?
Yeah. Barbecue.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Of course, the cart's at my house, so it's a long way to drive it to the. Although it's interesting you bring it up. When Notre Dame comes to Clemson in 2023, I'm going to get that cart over to campus somehow and drive it around campus. I'm going to do that day. Well, good, KJ. We look forward to. I'll be there going to the scrimmage. And now they did move the time. I don't know if you heard that. The scrimmage isn't going to start till 4:00. I think the barbecue starts at 3, but they moved it later so Coach Swinney can go to Bobby Bowden's funeral.
Oh, all right.
So he's going down to Florida to the funeral, and he's coming flying down and flying back. But they did move the time. So any former Tigers like Eric Coleman thinking about coming, change your schedule a little bit on Saturday.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Y'all make sure y'all tune in and subscribe. Yeah.
Well, it's been great to be on with you guys.
Yes, man. You know it. It was a great conversation, great interview, man. I had fun.
Really
you got any
enjoyed
shout
it.
out?
What's that?
I was asking, do you have any shout outs before we head out? Anybody want to shout out to?
Any shout outs?
Teammates,
well, again, I guess
coaches.
Certainly shout out to we just showed Dabo. Certainly he would be one. And again, I want to congratulate Bill DeAndre going into the Hall of Fame, and just a shout out to all the former players. And I'm glad you're doing this. I do some things like this with Wayne Buckingham with basketball, so it's fun to. Glad you got this going too. So. Send me these links when you're doing it, and I got 22,000 followers on Twitter, so I'll pass it on.
All right, we appreciate that so much.
Most of them are Clemson fans too.
Yep.
There's a few Notre Dame people in there, but that's all right. We can weed them out for this.
Any advice for the youth or anybody that wants to get into sports information or sports information director? Any advice?
Yeah, I'd say, the biggest advice, and of course this could go for everybody, math and English. Study your math and English when you're a kid. Sports information, a lot of it, we were writing, and it's records and stats and stuff like that. So math and English. Do well in your math and English. Of course, that can help you in a lot of things that you're going to do, but especially sports information. Especially sports information.
Yes, sir. Well, we appreciate you coming on the show. Just like I said, is there any links or anything you want to, shout out to the public and let them know where they can follow you at?
My Twitter's at Tim Bourret is my regular Twitter handle. And like I said, I got a lot of people on there. So, but I do a lot of tweets and mostly stats and records and things like that. People seem to enjoy it. So glad to do it. I'm looking forward to tuning in to the next show just to see KJ's outfit.
All right. I'm trying to tell you.
Hey, Notre Dame style, baby.
Yeah, he's a little bit. He's got a little green and gold going there. That's right. That's right.
Just a little off.
Yeah,
I want to put a little bit of money brand in there.
That's right. No, looks good. Looking good.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed it, you guys. Good to see you.
All right. Well, you guys, you have tuned
you
into
too.
another edition of the Sports Shop 27. I'm your host, Jermaine Coulter. To my far right, my co-host, Kevin Johnson, KJ. And today we'd like to thank special guests, Sports Information Director, Hall of Famer, class of 2017, Tim Bourret. All right. The guy with the program. Yes, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. You guys be safe.
Thank you.
Wear your mask. And it's not
Good
how
to
you
see
start,
you.
it's how you finish. All right?
Take care. All right.
Later.
Peace.